All right, so last week, my wife and I went on a day date, which is something that's it's something that we haven't been able to do since 2 years ago before COVID, because the kids have been home every single day for the past 2 years almost. So now that they're back in school, we're able to resume our day dates, and we couldn't find a movie to watch. We didn't know what we wanted to see. My wife was just scrolling through movies, and she was like, "What about this one? What about that one? What about this one?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I took the kids to see that one last week," and blah blah blah. And eventually, we settled on a movie we knew nothing about, and it was this little gem. Honestly, I hadn't heard much buzz about it at all. In fact, it's already out on streaming. I didn't even know that when we went to see it. But as you see by the title, it is called News of the World. It stars Tom Hanks and this just little amazing actress, a little German actress. I don't know if she's German. She definitely has a German name, and she plays a German girl in the film. But I think we both enjoyed it. Me a little bit more than my wife, as she kind of a lot of times she sees movies as like, well, they're all the same. They're very formulaic. Like, this is just like every other movie about a guy and a kid bonding over a road trip. But I especially enjoyed this one. I really like westerns, and this was definitely a western. And I love the era in which it takes place. It takes place just after the Civil War. So like when everything in the South is a little finicky, and there's a lot of soldiers, Union soldiers in the South to make sure to enforce, the laws of the country, right? And to make sure that no one in the South is kind of going by the old way of doing things down there. So this takes place in Texas, and like I said, just after the Civil War, like 1870. So a perfect Western era, and better to me than doing even like a 1890s, 1880s Western, which is where most of your typical Western films that you watch take place, usually in the late 1800s. But this one, 1870, I just feel like it's such a cool era. It's such an interesting era to see what the sentiments of the people in the South were like towards the people in the North after, the Union had won the Civil War and was enforcing the law of the land. This film is about a veteran of the Civil War, who travels from town to town reading the news, right? A lot of people back then couldn't read, didn't know how to read, didn't have access to news. He would travel around with newspapers from all around the country, from different places in the world, and he would tell the most current news that he could to each of these towns, and people loved it, right? This movie is a story of a storyteller, which is what I kind of consider myself to be, like, not through just movie reviews and stuff like that, but telling personal stories and things, and my writing and stuff like that. And if I had to boil it down, what it is that I do, I'm a storyteller. And this film, especially, like I said, the premise of it struck a chord with me, because I feel like I'm a storyteller, and sometimes you feel like storytelling isn't that important. You can get to thinking that, like, oh, you're just telling stories. Oh, you're just making movies. Oh, you're just writing comic books, whatever it might be. But this movie really zeroes in on just how powerful a story can be. And that's not even the main, like, the main story in this is actually, is this guy encountering this little girl who has been raised by natives. She had been kidnapped by natives after her family had been killed, but she was very young when this happened, 5 or 6 years old. And now she's, 12 or something, and doesn't speak English, only speaks in the native tongue that she was raised in. So she was raised with native people. And it's interesting because the whole film, like, he finds her, and he's trying to return her to her family, which are these German folk who live in this area of Texas. And as he's, along this journey, she's very resentful, right? She obviously she can't speak English, but she keeps saying she wants to go home, and originally he thinks that means like back to her parents. Then quickly, though, he realizes she means her adopted family, the people that have been raising her for the past 6 years. So really interesting dynamic, really interesting thing. And this kind of thing really happened. Like, settlers would be, young settlers or even adult settlers sometimes would be kidnapped or taken after the raid of a camp or something, and would be kind of indoctrinated, brought into the culture of whatever Native American tribe had taken them, and these people end up falling in love with that lifestyle. Kids kind of don't know any better. They just learn how to interact with things. But even adults would be like, wow, I really and I love this way of life, and sometimes they wouldn't want to return back to, the typical white settler culture, because they had fallen in love with the native culture. So in this film, this little girl is very resentful. Basically, this is the only family she's known. She barely remembers her original German family, and it's the story of these two forming a bond over the course of, whatever it is, many weeks of travel, months maybe. That's not super specific, but them kind of forming a bond, and by the end of the movie, they form a very, very close bond. And I'm not going to ruin the end for people who haven't seen it, but I want to recommend this movie because I think it is fantastic. Not only for this wonderful relationship that develops between, this father-daughter relationship, which I'm extremely susceptible to. My little girl's like, she can do no wrong, and I'm sure a lot of fathers of daughters out there can relate. But it especially strikes a chord with me because of the father-daughter relationship, and but then also because of the news aspect, the storytelling aspect. I absolutely love that aspect. And there's a scene in the movie that it almost brought tears to my eyes, and this was not even the father-daughter relationship thing. This was him using the power of storytelling to dramatically affect a group of people. And if you haven't seen it, you'll know it when you see that scene. If you have seen it, then you probably know what I'm talking about. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you can guess what scene that is, let me know in the comments below. But I want to hear what other people think of this. I thought it was such a fantastic movie, and I'm really surprised that it didn't get much buzz. But it came out in a pandemic, so I understand. Not many movies came out during a pandemic. The ones that did not do well. So I get it. But I want to hear what you guys think of this film. If anyone has seen it, I haven't heard anyone talking about this film, and I absolutely loved it. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of this film. If you enjoyed my review, please like the video. If you enjoy this type of thing, here's what I do on this channel. It's not just movie reviews and stuff like that, but it's mostly pop culture and entertainment stuff. But every day, or close to every day, I try to post a video talking about something that I enjoy, whether it be, like I said, entertainment or pop culture. Sometimes I just tell life stories from my questionable youth, all kinds of different things. So if you're into that, if you're interested in getting something new and interesting in your feed every day, then please subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, because if you don't do that, you will not, it's likely that you will not even see when I upload. That's just how the algorithm works. So if you want to see my uploads, hit that little notification bell. But thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of News of the World in the comments. And if you decide to subscribe, decide to stick around and get like the new interesting stuff in your feed every day, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.